And here to talk to us more about the destruction and the government's response is former director of FEMA, Michael D. Brown. Michael, thank you so much for being here.
You bet, Natasha.
I know that you have been critical of the Biden administration's handling of this disaster. You've said that President Biden shouldn't even visit Maui, and you called one of Biden's comments on Maui an abject failure. Tell us why you think this and why you think he shouldn't go tomorrow.
Well, the first reaction he had to this disaster was no comment. And when somebody said specifically, well, do you have a comment about the disaster in Hawaii? Either he was completely misinformed by his staff, which is a horrible thing to occur, or he was truly so out of it, he didn't know what they were talking about. And he said no comment and got back into the limousine. That's just awful to think that the president of the United States is that clueless about what's going on in Hawaii. With respect to his trip, if he can make this trip, now let me just explain that when a president makes a trip anywhere, the Secret Service is going to put a cap over the air. So no helicopters, no Chinooks, no Black Hawks, nothing are going to fly within a certain radius of Marine One. And then whenever the president lands, that area is going to be cordoned off and there's not going to be anything going on. So I don't know this White House advance team. I don't know what they're doing, but I know in a disaster like this, I would have told the White House advance team, maybe you go to Honolulu, maybe you meet with the governor, maybe we fly some victims over to have a town hall or do something. But to actually go on Maui, I think is going to be disruptive. And while everyone wants I understand why everybody wants the president to show up. But I just think we need to talk about the logistics and make certain that where he's going is not going to interrupt things. And just from my personal experience, they will interrupt things.
I know you're also putting out a call for honest communication from our leaders and agencies. What do you think we see too often when officials take a microphone during these disasters?
I always love the photo op where you get a governor and a state treasurer or maybe a mayor or somebody, and they go to the microphone. You got I experienced these myself, where you've got the FEMA director standing there, and you got a bunch of people lined up, and everybody's praising everybody else about the great coordination. Everything's going wonderful. That doesn't help people on the ground. You need to be honest about things. For example, I heard in an earlier report just now from one of your reporters that it may take up to 7 weeks to get power restored. Considering the devastation of this fire, I think 7 weeks might be optimistic. So I believe one thing for certain. Even in a disaster, the American people can handle the truth. So just tell them the truth about what you expect. I would also encourage people on Maui, get off social media, listen to officials, listen to government officials, listen to reliable news sources like NewsNation. Just make certain that you're listening to a reliable source and you're not watching Twitter or Facebook or some other place.
You know, we just heard in our reporter Evan Moon's story, Hawaii Governor Josh Green defending the federal government's response. He called it incredible. And he also seemed to defend Hawaii not using those emergency sirens, saying that it could have been dangerous to do so because of the tsunami training. What is your take on all of that?
Well, I'm not, I hesitate to say anything. First, of course, the governor's going to talk about how great things are because he's trying to get as much federal aid into there as possible. So he's not going to be critical, at least to the media, he's not going to be critical. With respect to the sirens, didn't we just have several years ago a accidental firing of the sirens thinking there was some nuclear attack occurring? Look, I think most people on the island understand that the sirens are used for tsunamis. That's been 60 plus years ago. And I think most tourists, when they hear a siren, understand there's danger. So they're going to try to figure out what the danger is. It's at least some sort of an alert that there's danger so that you can figure out some way to get out of the danger. Not using the sirens, I think, has become kind of a red herring. Let's investigate why sirens weren't used.
Yeah. Can I get your inside take here? As you're watching these press conferences where they're sitting there and, as you say, they go down the line and they congratulate everybody for great coordination and they put out these very impressive sounding numbers. Are you thinking to yourself in the back of your head that you've been at the head of these big conferences and these big meetings and that behind the scenes maybe things are not going as smoothly as they're projecting it to be?
Well, in fact, I think one of the biggest mistakes I made during Hurricane Katrina was not grabbing a microphone somewhere because I had tried to explain to President Bush on his way down to New Orleans things are really bad and they're not working very well. We've got a governor, we got a mayor in Louisiana that's just very uncooperative, and they just flat out don't know what they're doing. And I kind of wish that, even though it kind of fell on deaf ears with President Bush, I wish I'd gone to some microphone and just said to the American public, let me tell you straightforward that things are not working here. Now, I probably would have been fired on the spot, but having told the truth, I think, is the better alternative always in these natural disasters.
You know, we have been tracking reports of misinformation on social media. In just one case that Evan was just speaking about, social media videos saying that residents should not sign anything from FEMA because FEMA will seize their property. I know that you have said misinformation is one of the deadliest problems in natural disasters. Tell us more about that.
Well, let's take that for an example. So I've heard, and I've actually read reliable sources, that the governor of Hawaii is actually considering that the Hawaiian government will buy up property in Maui to prevent speculators from coming in. What an absurd thing to consider. That is private property. Individuals will make their decision about whether or not they want to sell their property, they want to rebuild. That's up to them. And so when you get an idea from a governor about, hey, we might buy up your property, I can imagine that, you know, the old game we used to play in school where you'd whisper in somebody's ear, and by the time you got around the circle, the story had completely changed. Well, I can see that story completely changing to where people are thinking, don't sign anything from FEMA because they're going to take your property. FEMA has no right to take your property whatsoever. I can guarantee you this, every person working for FEMA as one of the disaster relief teams that's on Maui right now is not going to take your property. They want to get everything possible that they can to help you, which is going to be limited, but everything possible that they can to help you, they're going to do.
Michael, I have two quick questions. What do you want to hear from President Biden tomorrow? What could possibly make things better?
Well, I think, one, he needs to recognize that this is, when you think about, I mean, I don't want to get too graphic here, but when you think about finding cars where mom and dad are in the front seat and a 7-year-old child is in the back seat and they're charred to death, this is for me reminiscent of Ground Zero or the Pentagon on 9/11. It's a horrific disaster. So the president needs to be compassionate. He needs to be caring. He needs to be quiet, and he needs to listen what people have to say. Now's not the time for pontificating. Now is the time to be listening to their needs.
Michael, I just want to say, you know, it is rare that we have a former FEMA director on the show who is this willing to speak this candidly and this bluntly about the federal response, about potential holes in the FEMA response, potentially cannibalize existing relationships that you still have. Why are you doing this? What is the willingness? Is it personal frustration as you're watching this unfold? Is it lessons that you learned in Katrina?
Well, it's all of those things. It's personal frustration, but it's also, I mean, who better, I mean, I don't want to pat myself on the back here, but who better to ask than someone who's been through the fire or criticism? Look, I've been on the mountaintop. I've had very successful responses to disasters, and I've had a horrible response to a disaster, which was Hurricane Katrina. So I've seen I've seen the entire spectrum of response. So my job as the former FEMA director is just to tell the public the truth about what's going on every time a disaster occurs.
I appreciate that. What grade would you give the response to this disaster so far?
Well, it's hard to say because, again, there's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of no information coming out. I was critical in the beginning because I thought there was a dearth of search and cadaver dogs. Well, now I hear that there are 1,000 urban search and rescue team members on the ground. If that's true, that's a dramatic improvement from when this disaster first occurred.
Okay. Michael D. Brown, I appreciate your time tonight. Thank you for your candor.
Anytime. Thank you, Natasha.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.